Hello, Drunkduckers. Welcome to the Drunkduck Quackcast. This is Quackcast number 727. I'm Baines, and with me is Ozone Ocean and Tanserine.
Hello.
Hello. So this week we're chortling and talking about painting. I think we're going to do a painting series, and we're going to talk about just painting or drawing all different aspects of things for comics. And this week we're starting off with clouds. No, we're starting off with sky and sea. Clouds are a subset of sky. So that's what we're going to do for this particular Quackcast. So Quackcast number 727, the Cloudcast. That's a good name for it. The Cloudcast.
Yeah. Or it could also be the Skycast or the Seacast.
Yeah, they're all good names. Cloudcast reminds me of one of my favourite songs by Kate Bush, Cloud Bursting.
Oh, then we'll go with that.
Beautiful song. It's just so lovely. Beautiful song from the late 80s. We're going to do a whole series on Painterly. So we don't do many technical casts about drawing and painting and artwork and visual art, as Baines was telling us before. So that's what we're going to do. And the first part of this is painting sky and sea, or just sky. Depends on how much we get through in this particular cast. So that's what we're going to be talking about. But first up, got to mention the featured comic. Featured comic was a comic that I featured, and it's called Grape Shot. So I will tell you about Grape Shot now. Hello, I'm Ozone Ocean, and my feature for the week was Grape Shot. Massive wooden galleons have been plying the oceans for hundreds of years as the races vie for dominance over the deep blue seas. Generations ago, orcs and dwarves were defeated by the humans and elves. But now it seems the tides are turning and the winds of battle are no longer in the humans' favour. This is naval warfare on the high seas with cannon fire, boarding parties, cutlasses, tricorn hats, fold-top boots and frock coats, also huge folded cuffs. We're talking classic Golden Age-looking pirates fighting it out in their man-of-wars in true swashbuckling style. This is an action-adventure fantasy comic. The art is black and white, highly textured and very hand-drawn looking, but it's digital art. It looks cool, and it's good to see a pirate action-adventure kind of story, because we don't see very much of that genre. So this is just purely pirates in a fantasy world. And the world is just sea and ships and people in fantastic outfits fighting it out. Sort of like One Piece, but not One Piece. It's better than that. It's not manga fantasy silliness. This is proper pirates being proper fantasy piratical. So enjoy Grape Shot, which is a comic by Mercury Virus Comic, and it's rated T for teen. And that was Grape Shot. Okay, now we have our featured music. Gummels has given us a fantastic theme too. Community Falls. Down home where the grass is blue, the moon is shining and fiery, the hills are billy, and the upper is Lation. Banjo, guitar, drums, and stand-up bass give us a nice little energetic mountain dancing tune. A real hoedown. This is Baines' amazing comic, Continuity Falls. Take it away, Gummels, with your theme to Continuity Falls. a fantastic theme. Thank you very much for that, Gum Wallace. Oh my god, you got to read this comic. You got to read. Continuity Falls. It's so good. Okay, guys. Now we're going to be talking about painterly stuff. All kinds of painterly stuff. And sky and sea are two big things in backgrounds. They're the biggest things in backgrounds ever, really, aren't they? They're the largest backgrounds you can have. Because it's just open air. I mean, you could have land, you could have mountains, but sea is a little bit grander, I think, because it's just so, like, all-encompassing.
Yeah.
Whereas mountains, like, here's a mountain, there's a mountain, there's a mountain, there's a valley or whatever, but sea is just, no, I take over everything. I am just flat, as far as the eye can see. Totally flat.
And the sky can be, on one hand, like the super convenient background, especially if you have like a bit of a low angle, so you can justify it being just the sky as a background to your figure or, you know, whatever you have in the foreground. And it can also reflect, like it can generate visual drama a lot, or it can hint at things. Or give you information that you would otherwise need to put in one of those little squares on the webcomic.
You mean it offers space? Is that what you're saying, or something else?
I didn't catch that. What?
You mean because there's space there for narration?
No. I mean, for example, instead of saying it is, it is the crack of dawn, you actually draw the sky at the crack of dawn.
Yeah,
you don't
exactly.
need to say this. Or it is like noon.
It's a plumber's crack of dawn.
Yeah.
No, we don't want to paint that.
Speak for yourself. I love that.
Also, it requires painting skin, which is not our topic.
Ah, yes, that's true. That's true. So one of the most important things about sky drawing and sea drawing, and this is a very, very specific thing with sky and sea, because the horizon is totally flat. If you're talking about a sea horizon, the sky and the sea will meet, and where they meet is your eye line. That's your eye line. So if you're looking down on something, if you're high looking down, then your eye line is really high. So it's high on the page. So the horizon is towards the top of the page. If you're low down looking up, then your horizon is low down on the page to show, and say if you're drawing a whole bunch of people, and if you want to draw like a really tall person, then they should be above the level of the horizon. Someone at the viewer's height should be at their eye line, should be at the level of the horizon. And if they're shorter than, your main character, whatever, then their eye line should be below that horizon line. So it's a very important, very simple kind of measure. It's the most simple, and it's very accurate. Very accurate.
Yeah, you can't go wrong.
And that also sort of counts with objects and buildings and trees and stuff like that. So if it's tall trees, you've got to do the majority of the tree above the horizon rather than just a little part of the tree. If it's a short tree, then do what you want. But if it's a tall tree or a huge mountain or something like that, most of it should be above the horizon. Horizons are tricky with mountains because if you've got a lot of mountains, then they're going to be blocking the horizons. You just got to imagine where it is.
Yeah, but if you want to make
a comic, it could be so many different contexts, obviously.
Yeah, especially if you want to make like a looming gigantic mountain, you can have like the horizon at almost like the very bottom of the panel, and like a very thin strip of sea, and this huge mountain mass, and then you have and of course you need to properly paint it and shade it, but it can give off like this very imposing vibes to it. So.
It can. You know what? The weirdest mountain I've ever seen was the one when I was in Bali for the first time. So I went to Bali lovely, lovely little island. And you look out to the sea there, and it just looks like a normal flat sea. You just look out, and that's because there's so much humidity in the air that it just sort of it just creates an artificial horizon that you're looking out at. And when that burns off during the later part of the day, suddenly this massive mountain emerges. It was invisible, and suddenly it's there. There's a huge mountain just appearing from nowhere because all the humidity in the fake horizon, the fake, view that you're looking at is disappeared. And there's this mountain that's just appeared out of the ghostly fog. It's an incredible thing to see. And it's actually one thing they mention in the classic musical South Pacific. There's a song about Bali High and how you have this magical mountain that appears. And that's probably that mountain, which is a pretty amazing thing. Yeah, and it's real. It's not just a thing in a song. So that was very imposing, that thing. But the interesting thing about that is like the humidity can give you a fake impression of the sky and where it meets the sea. And you can play with that. Sky does very interesting things when you have humidity because you have a thing called atmospheric perspective. An atmospheric perspective, that means things that are close to you are clearer and sharper, and the further they get away, the more faded they are. So if you're looking at like mountains on land, your mountains will be like, okay, this one's like really kind of like green or snowy on top, and then you have the faded, and they have a blue fading like filter over the top, and the further you get away, the more blue your mountains get until they disappear into the sky.
And they just become silhouettes, basically.
Or invisible.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's an interesting thing. So we're talking about not just the way things look, but how you actually render them, how you paint them.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about skies. So many different skies. So we have grey skies, we have sunny skies, we have polluted skies, we have blue skies. We have skies in the morning, skies in the evening, skies in the middle of the night. And they're all different. Yeah. So what about a night sky? How do you guys paint a night sky?
Well, it's never like 100% black. I usually choose like a very dark blue that on its own wouldn't be a night sky, if that makes sense. It would look more like a very dark blue, like twilight level, for example, dark blue. And then I go over with darker shades of that blue to create the night. And it depends on the black on the sky. I mean, if it is a cloudy black sky, then you need to have the clouds, and it does have a moon to reflect, to have light reflect of the clouds, or is it like completely dark, like there's a new moon, there's no moon? So you only have starlight. Is the starlight enough? Are there clouds? All of that. But I work from the background towards the foreground in the sense that I make the tint of the sky, of the black sky. It will never be completely the same saturation of dark, even though it can be, it will, at first glance, it will look, massive black, but it's never that. And then I start with the stars, then a little bit of the clouds, blah, blah, that sort of thing. That's how I do it as a method.
Okay. What about you, Bones?
Well, because we're doing this topic, I'm thinking I got to give this way more thought than I have. And you guys draw such beautiful skies. A lot of times I'll use a gradient for a night sky. I do agree with Tense. I don't, even in a simpler style, I don't go black because, my comics in color. Most of us draw stuff in color. So it'll be like a really dark blue. It'll be like sort of a haze of some kind of fog or cloud. in there. Usually I do that, to accentuate the characters so they don't blend into the dark sky. But that's about
Okay.
it. Having some variety in the dark blue, I think would make it look so much better. And
Mm-hmm.
needs more attention. But that's usually what I do, like a dark, very dark blue and a hazy kind of either a fog or hazy clouds or whatever. Then if the moon is going to appear, I don't do that very often, but sometimes there'll be
Yeah, I mean,
moon.
what do you do around the moon? So the moon, I find it doesn't work well if you just do a solid white moon or yellow moon. Is like I like 99% of the time I see the moon as white, but a lot of people see the moon as yellow for some reason. So I don't really understand it.
No, I see it as white as well. Grayish
Yeah.
white.
Yeah, it's a bit greyish, but the moon, if you do it a hard white or hard grey, it doesn't look as good. But if you add a little bit of fuzz around it, then that looks more real, more acceptable.
Yeah.
That's true.
You have to shade it a little bit, I have found as well. Like you have to give it nuance. Like this, it never is a solid color, no matter what the color it is that you see it in. As it has random quote unquote shadow on it.
Yeah.
You have to do a little bit of that, at least to hint, and give it that tiny glow that you mentioned as well.
You do. The only moon I've done in Bottomless Wages is a sort of a yellow, and it's a crescent moon. There you are. That's weird. That's weird. For somebody who doesn't do yellow moons, I've done a yellow moon.
Yeah, for a comic titled Bottomless Waitress, you'd think.
I think Jane's the main character. It should be a brown moon.
Right.
I have to confess that I generally don't like to draw the moon or the sun. I like to hint where they are by showing the light, like where it reflects on the sea or on the objects where they are a little bit lighter, like more grayish for the night. And if I want to show like this is like a really bright sun, I will make part of the sky have like a gradient towards yellowish white.
Yeah.
And I imply that that's where the sun is, just a little bit off camera. I don't like to draw the actual sun if I can avoid it.
Yeah.
It's tricky because the sun is the brightest thing in the sky, so it has to be the brightest thing in your panel, which means it fights with the bloody word bubbles because they're always white too, so you can't get any brighter than those. So that means, yeah, you're doing something weird there, but I do it anyway. So.
Oh, you show the sun a lot?
Sometimes, yeah, I don't shy away from it. So what I'll do when I do the sun is I do a radial gradient, and my gradient will be like just full color to nothing, I suppose, like full color to invisible. So then you'll have a lot of white fading around. So I always do my suns white because any time I've looked at the sun, I've never seen it yellow.
Mm-hmm.
It's so bright. How could the sun appear yellow? It's so incredibly bright. So even if, the sun is yellow, but your eyes can't really see it as yellow because it's too bright for that.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know, maybe very early in the morning, like just after it has, risen or something like that, maybe then.
yeah, you could do that really early in the morning, and then it's like it could be red too, depending on the pollution. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, my suns tend to be glowing white balls of horror when I do them. But you're right, it's drawing suns is a problem because it washes out everything else.
Yeah. Now, honestly, unless it is necessary for some purpose, I generally don't like drawing the sun in the panel, for not only for the washing out part, but drawing a sun, quote unquote, realistically is a bit tricky as well, because you basically have to make a round white blob with sort of uneven glowy rays. And not even rays, because then it refers to a children's picture. So I don't know, I don't like it. In general.
And, well, I didn't comment on my version of night skies.
Yeah.
The glowing rays, you can do some fun things with those. You can. If you want to stylize stuff, you could go the old Byzantine halo kind of effect, or you could do the Japanese rising sun kind of image, and those are pretty cool. Okay, so the way I do night skies is the same as you guys, like with a blue or sometimes a grey. So if I do it, most of the time I use a blue, and the blues can depend. So I can use all different blues, like, really kind of purpley blues, or down to sort of a greeny blue, and I'll fade it to grey. So I'll have a grey gradient, and that grey could be on the horizon, or it could be the opposite way. It could be the grey higher. And if I'm doing it that way, then depends on where you're looking. So if you're looking towards the horizon when the sun's going to come up or something like that. I mean, it's not when the sun's going to come up, but when it's like, 3 a.m, something like that. So the sun is coming closer to you. So then if you're looking towards the horizon, that's the opposite of that. The horizon's going to be darker, and that part of the sky is darker, and it's going to be fading to a lighter grey in the direction where the sun's going to come. So obviously the west. No, east. Duh. The sun comes up in the east. Okay, there we are. There we go.
Yeah.
Always sun comes up in the east. It doesn't matter which hemisphere you're in. So yeah, I have that kind of grayness fading. But yeah, and it's the opposite if you're looking at the part of the sky where it could even be something like there's a city. So there's a city, and that's whatever on the horizon, on the land, that's going to make the sky lighter as well. So the sky's going to be a lighter grey above the city, and darkening towards, whatever darkness you want. Dark blue in my example. And then I just pepper the stars. And the stars are tricky because stars have to be circular. So it means that, you can have twinkly stars, little crosses and stuff like that. But generally stars are going to be little circles. But if you tap with a pen or something like that, often it smears it. So you got to be very careful to make them a dot.
I have to say, I use jitter to make the stars.
Okay.
So
special tools.
Yeah. So I have like a very small round soft brush, and I use jitter depending on, I don't know how much jitter, depends on what I'm painting. And I just let it sprinkle randomly and create a night sky. And often I will even do something like I make a cluster of stars that I like, and then I copy that and repeat it, but I flip it around and it looks random, although it isn't. And if I want to show, some stars are going to have to be brighter than others. So I also play with that with my levels. I usually don't touch them manually to make a starry sky.
It's tricky. It's tricky.
Yeah.
You can end up with so many mistakes and errors and trial and error basically until it looks good. So yeah, it's a problem.
But it can be fun. And thankfully I have never had to do that. I'm going to have to do that with Verdant because of course I make trouble for myself. But I will need at some point to make actual constellations. So I don't know. I have no idea how I'm gonna do that. Constellations that you can see are constellations in the sky, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So, uh,
Well, have a look at the real ones, and then you can sort of make your own version based on those.
yeah, I'll do that. Still don't look forward to it.
One of the annoying things, this is like beside the point. Okay, one of the really annoying things is our view of the planets. They all have particular looks, right?
Mm-hmm.
But those looks are based on interpretations by, I don't know, coloring software and stuff like that. So the planets don't necessarily have those colors. And we base our view of those planets on the most popular images. And those could be totally wrong, which is really annoying to me.
Yeah.
So how do those planets look by the bare eye? Saturn's this beautiful kind of greeny thing with these different lines, but the more realistic views of Saturn I've seen are all grey. It's just plain and boring.
Yeah, I think they all look like weird grays, like grayish variations, but they have chosen the colors from spectrology, or if that is the name, I might have butchered that. So they have seen what is the more prevalent, what are the more prevalent elements in their atmospheres, and what is reflected back would be that color. So that's how they color them.
Yeah, gases and things in the planet's atmosphere. So for years, my favorite planet has been Neptune, because it's always rendered with this beautiful dark blue, and so there's darker lines around it. It's just gorgeous, gorgeous planet. It's also got a nice set of rings, as all the gas giants do, or ice giants, whatever they are. Those larger planets. And yeah, it's very pretty. And whereas Uranus is kind of a milky kind of bluey green. It's just really boring. It's the colour they used to paint hospital rooms. It's disgusting, but everyone always goes on about it. But now they've said that the colours of those two planets are actually the same, pretty much. So
I generally like Venus a lot.
Oh, a golden planet.
Yeah, and Jupiter.
Okay, yeah, Jupiter's kind of reddish brownish.
And it has this permanent like swirl.
Yeah, the famous red spots. And a whole little brown ones and white ones. And then you've got Mars, which is pretty and red.
Yeah.
But
Mars,
yes.
I don't know why I always found Mars boring. Everyone was infatuated with Mars.
It is a bit boring. It's got those little white ice cap kind of areas.
Yeah.
Which are interesting. But yeah, it's pretty plain. Yeah, Venus is more mysterious.
Yeah. And it shifts, quote unquote, shifts colors more. Like it's not always golden. It has these weird fluctuations depending on when they get these mega storms or whatever it is they are called. And then it has these greenish, bluish, weird formations, and I really like that. So.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. Well, okay, Venus, that brings us to something interesting, because Venus is the brightest star in our night sky. Obviously, it's a planet, but with the naked eye, you can't really make that distinction. It's a star to your naked eye, and it's the brightest object in the sky. I think maybe Mercury could compete with that in some situations because of circumstance, but generally it's Venus. And I think
honestly, I suck at that. So you are the expert.
So what is our brightest actual star? Is that Ursa Minor or something, or Sirius? I can never remember.
Sirius.
Yeah, isn't that the actual brightest star?
I think so.
But it's not as bright as Venus.
They're called differently in Greek, so I'm not really sure which is which. But the one is the one that you see as soon as there is dusk, and the other one is the one that you see last when there is dawn. At least that's what people say here. I have never bothered to learn. So, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm doing a search. Okay, I just did a search and it says, oh, Venus is the brightest star. But I meant stars, not... Okay, so here we go. List of brightest stars. Oh, whatever. Just tell me. Sirius. Is Sirius or Venus brighter? Are you being serious, Pines?
I took that serious. Alice Cooper song, everyone.
Oh, really?
Yes. But not talking about the star. Talking about the emotional state. But that's another story. Yeah, it says here, Sirius. Are you serious?
Sirius. Well, there we go. Okay, it is Sirius. And, well, when you're drawing the night sky, you can render that as being a nice bright star. And it is, like, Venus and Sirius are considerably brighter than the rest of the stars. So generally you'll want to draw your stars being sort of like not equally bright, because there's a lot of variation in brightness, but you want to do the Sirius or Venus as being much brighter than the rest of them, because it really does glow like a little spotlight, Venus more than Sirius.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other stars, I mean, if we could see this night sky and we could just see stars, then the whole sky would be full of them. But you can't, because you can only see a certain amount, so there's a lot of black space in between. So, and that also depends. So if you're in if you're depicting a sky over a city, there's going to be less stars, because the there's light pollution, it wipes everything out. If you're in the country where there's not even any street lights, then you'll see a lot more stars, because the sky is much darker.
You could even see like almost the Milky Way a little bit, or a lot.
Can.
I mean, I remember when I was a kid and we used to vacation in one of the Cyclades, the island of Tinos. We had zero lights during the night where we were staying. So you could see, and because the island is always super windy, you had almost never cloud coverage. The sky was always clear, and you could see part of the Milky Way.
Oh,
every
really?
night. Yeah, it was really pretty.
Apparently, Milky Way, the name of our constellation. No, it's a constellation. It is the galaxy that we're part of. Apparently, the name comes from a Greek myth about Hera spraying milk into the sky.
Yes.
What, from her breast?
Yes.
Oh my goodness me! Well, she's a very creative lady.
Well, it was because she was breastfeeding Heracles, and
okay.
he bit on her nipple and woke her up, and she realized that she was nursing the kid that she was trying to kill. So she pulled her boob away from the baby, and the milk, sprouted out, and now we have the Milky Way.
Oh God! So it's literally named after that. That's bizarre. So the Chinese apparently call it a silver river, which is quite nice. Mm-hmm. And in the Kalahari Desert, they call it the backbone of the sky, which is a bit more grim.
Yeah.
Like a dead cow's backbone.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, and obviously the sky doesn't have any stars at all if it's full of clouds. So then it could appear just black if there's no moon or there's no street lights or anything like that. If you're in the middle of the bush, well, that's what we would call in Australia. You don't call it the bush, you call it like the wilderness, I suppose.
Wilderness, yeah.
Yeah. So it would be, just pure black, and you can't see anything then. That's the most frightening kind of night sky.
But it can be super dramatic, and I really like painting that although I have rarely had the chance to do it. When it is, like you said, like all black and everything, but you do have a moon and it is hidden behind the clouds, and you have just a small hint of grays, like very heavy gray, with very dramatic shadows under the clouds. And it's just a very small patch of
Just a
drama.
glow.
Yeah, on a very sinister sky, like very dark, sinister sky. Yeah, I really like that. I should paint that.
Then it can suddenly reveal or half reveal, which a half shaded moon is pretty dramatic, and then fully revealing the moon just in that little circle could be quite shocking. Suddenly everything's lit up.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, with a bright lit moon, when you have a full moon, it can be so bright. So that's another tricky thing, you know. Like a night scene, and this is a different variation of skies, means that everything is rendered in grey because colours are gone from that kind of situation, or colours are really faded. So everything has to be in shades of grey.
And highlights have to be grey, like lighter grey as well.
It's very hard to see colour because our eyes. Eyes have rods and cones, and it's the part of your eye that registers tone rather than colour that really does the work at night. Because the colour part is not really functioning that well. Sarah, okay, go on.
No, I was going to move on from dark skies into when the blackness breaks. So when we move to dawn.
Dawn, and so the interesting thing is, so dawn and dusk are the same. It's the same effects because just the sun moves towards different kind of areas. So the sun's going down at dusk and it's going up at dawn, which means it seems to be different, but it is the same. Like if you took a photo at dusk and dawn and then you compared them, they would show the same scenes. It's just that the time moves differently. But yeah, so you can have it basically copy and paste. So if you can master one, you can master the other. It's very useful that way.
and you get like the most colorful, like different colored skies then during those times, because you get all those interesting oranges and yellows, and there is also purple in there and weird
pink, bright pink.
Yeah, exactly. And the entire sky can be like, you can make a legitimate sky at dawn that has zero blue in it. Like it is all like pink, orangey, and purpley and dark as well, like very dark, as the light starts, dispersing the darkness of the night.
And so what causes the sky to be blue or pink or red? It's the scattering of the particles in the atmosphere, apparently. It's very complicated how it works, so I'm not going to explain it. But because the light is scattered a certain way, you're seeing the red or the blue hues. So that's what's left over. It's like, so, when you've got, like, you're wearing a blue jumper, the reason why it's blue is because it's absorbing all those other shades of light, and it's only reflecting the blue, so that's what you can see. But in the sky, it's like scattering all the rest, and it's just letting the blue through to your eyes, so that's why it's blue. I think that's the simplest way of explaining it. But in the mornings and the evenings, the sun's coming from that really low angle, and the atmosphere is a lot thicker because you're looking through much thicker area of the dome of the sky. And so there's different properties to the scattering. So you're seeing, the longer wavelength. So red is the longest wavelength, or infrared, but that's invisible. So red, and then you have the oranges and pinks and yellows. Well, pink isn't actually a color. Pink is a mixture of things. So that happens when you're seeing red and, I don't know, the whatever else, like whiteness of clouds or something like that, and it's changing it to pink. But it's all a visual mix.
Yeah, and what I would say is that you can have like dawn or dusk, of course, can make for very interesting and unusual shading of the land if you have land that uh, dawn is breaking up, and because it's supposed it's still should be shaded like it's twilight, basically, like very dark, uh, desaturated colors and stuff. But if the sun is high enough, some of the actual light will stream through and hit certain patches. So you get like a side of the mountain is bright, and all of the rest is this desaturated soft color.
If you have mountains,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, the top of a mountain can be like it's lit by full daylight, whereas the rest
yeah,
of it will still be all in dusk,
which
like you're
I love.
saying.
I really like that as an effect. And also you can have like very dark sky in one corner, or like in one corner it's still night, and in the opposite one it's day, more or less. And that can also create a very interesting effect, especially if you have clouds, because clouds um, can have very dramatic shading if they are thick enough, and um, they also can glow and reflect light.
They
So
can in a lovely way. Yeah, the clouds make your sky way more interesting at dawn and dusk. If it's just dawn and dusk without clouds, it's freaking boring. But if you've
yeah,
got clouds in there, then you see some fun stuff.
yeah. And always what a tip I would give is never paint clouds like they have no substance. They are 3D items, things, and they always cast some shadow. They always have some volume, and they are creatures of the sky in a sense. So you have to respect that. If they always have to, if they are very thin or very finely stretched and stuff, they still will have some very light hint of a shadow or shade, let's say, underneath, or depending on where the light is coming from. If it is dawn, then the shading is going to be on top, since the light is coming from underneath.
Yeah,
So the bottom of the cloud is going to be glowy and fun and stuff, and the top of it is going to be,
shaded. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. You can have very interesting effects when it's dawn and dusk. It's with your clouds and where the light is coming from. Like you say, when the sun is low enough, it can make amazing effects. I mean, that is where you can have the traditional rays, especially if it's like rainy or whatever. Then you
oh
can
yeah,
have the rays that come out like a kid's drawing.
yeah. That is gorgeous. If you and it's thanks to clouds, especially, or if not only dawn, you could have a normal, daytime sky and lots of clouds, and some part breaks, and that's where the ray of light comes through, and you can legitimately draw it, paint it. I mean, and it
Oh,
can be very
definitely.
dramatic. And also it could, signify that the problem is starting to resolve, or hope is arriving, that sort of thing. It can be very symbolic in your panel if you do that.
It can be. It can be very symbolic and pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Now we should. I mean, let's see. We've got the midday sky to cover, but that's pretty simple, isn't it? I mean, you've got the I mean, it's not simple. It's complicated, but you've got the like light blue to dark blue. We've already done that, haven't we? Or did we do that for the video cast?
You did.
Oh, so we have to do that. Oh, damn it. Okay, so daytime sky, light blue to darker blue. generally with a gradient, but you can get away with not doing a gradient, but gradient makes it easier. We did talk about sun though, or cloudy, and cloudy is so many different frickin' variations. It makes it interesting. It could be just blue with some white fluffy clouds, or you could be really complicated and do strata, cumulus, strata, cumulonimbus, all these kind of weird, big, different kinds of clouds. Or a fully overcast day, which is soft, just softness.
Yeah. And I would also advise to notice the weather, what the sky matches which weather. So don't paint the summer sky when everything is wintry, which might seem weird, but at least in Greece, and again, that depends on where you are in the world, a summer sky is going to be a lot more saturated, and it's going to look quote unquote hotter because you get more distortion than when you get the same amount of brightness, but it is winter. You're going to have a bit more desaturated colors, still bright, but it's not going to be this very flamboyantly blue. It's going to be more pastel.
It can depend though. Say if you're in the snow, so snowy kind of areas can be, depends on where you are too, it can be very dry. So they can have really bright blue skies. And that's a good contrast against that whiteness. So you have the white and the bright blue. So that can be a thing. Especially if you're doing in Antarctica or something like that, which is very, very dry.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, generally, like for winter skies, you want stuff to be more pastel. You're right there. Right. That's just one of the weird exceptions. But we haven't covered much sea in this cast yet.
Yeah.
We
have enough time?
We've got 15 minutes, though we should wrap up soon because we did start a bit late because of my silly experimentation with the Zoom. So we'll quickly cover sea. Okay, so sea is the easiest way to draw sea is it's lighter towards the shore and it's darker towards the horizon. So you should always remember that. That can change in specific weather conditions, but it's normally light towards the shore and dark towards the ocean because of two specific things. The ocean is transparent, so it's not a perfect mirror. It reflects the sky, but not exactly. So it reflects it in a dark blue generally. And towards the shore, you have the bottom, which you can see through because it gets light, it gets shallower. So you have the sand or the seaweed or the algae or whatever is in the water that affects the color. So the color will change depending on whether it's close to you or further away from you. But that's just the standard sea. There's all different variations. So if you're like in the Mediterranean, it's going to be more verdigris kind of colors, that classical green, greeny blue. And so we also talked about the idea on the video, if you've got a lot of like shell particles or coral or quartzy sand, it's going to be a lot lighter. It can be red sand, so it's going to be darker. Black sands, in times you mentioned in some specific island. Santorini?
Yeah.
Black.
Yeah, there is the black beach, and it has literal black sand, so it's black water.
Blackwater. The Pirates of Blackwater.
Yeah. I also want to say, whatever color is your sky, your sea has to be like a couple of tones darker because of that reflection. The reflection is always darker.
Yep.
But it cannot be a completely different shade.
Same shade but darker. But it also depends on the angle of the light that's hitting it. So if it's a really kind of narrow angle, or like say the sun is really low in the sky, the reflection is going to be more over reflection, so more pure reflection, rather than if the sun is higher in the sky, then it's going to be a darker reflection, because the reflection is better if it's on a low angle. So that's why in the mornings, if you've got a grey sky, the ocean will look a lot more silvery than it does in the middle of the day. In the middle of the day, it's not going to look like that. But in the mornings, it's really going to have that effect. So that's interesting.
Also for waves, the general rule of thumb is that closer to the horizon, the least you can see them. Like the sea looks very calm the further away it is from you, even if it is actually turbulent. It just look darker, but but flat. And as it comes closer to you, it will start to have texture, and you will you should start with tiny little waves, like baby waves, and then they become like bigger waves as you get closer to the shore. So that's the general rule of thumb.
And also the fact that, say, if you've got quite a deep ocean, you're not going to have many waves out beyond anyway, because they're not going to be breaking. There's going to be swells, but there's not going to be too many breaks. I mean, the wind can blow foam off the tops of things, but if you haven't got much wind, then that's not going to be much of a factor. But inshore, the waves break because the sine wave, the thing the shock wave, the thing as it moves through the water. Well, actually, no, waves don't work like that. That's only tidal waves. So normal waves, it's just on the surface. It's not something that moves through. But as those waves do come in closer, there's more chance of them breaking because of the shallowness of the water.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And also, you have to take into account if you're drawing, for example, like a bay, and you have turbulent sea, it's not going to be uniform within the bay. Where there is the least, like the most protection from the wind, you might even have like a completely flat sea, but on the other side of the bay, it might be, cresting waves with foam, in the works. So you have to take that into consideration. The sea is not going to be flat everywhere just because it is within the bay. That.
It's true. Drawing sea is a fun thing, and it takes a lot of experimentation to get right, especially if you want to do a stormy sea, because there's a lot more happening on a stormy sea. That's really tricky. And the angle it depends on too. So if you're really a high angle looking down on the ocean, things are going to be totally different than if you're at a low angle or if you are on sea level, which is way more dramatic. And if you're in the middle of the ocean, depending versus the coast, it's totally different again. So you've got different things to think about. You're going to have less waves when you're out in the middle of the ocean, generally, unless it's a storm, than you are on shore. Well, I mean, you'll have like swells and stuff like that, but they're not going to be breaking unless there's a storm, because the wind has to like knock those waves over. I mean, I've been on the ocean when there's been big waves, and I've been on a ship, and that's been fun. It can be scary, especially when you're at sea level, which you are.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's quite an interesting effect, especially when you're actually going over those waves.
I can imagine. You ever seen a Godzilla out there?
But a few Loch Ness monsters, but no Godzilla. Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. Giant squids, a dime a dozen. They're flailing around, pulling ships down, all that kind of normal stuff. But, yeah.
It does make it a little nerve-wracking to go out there.
Oh dear, it's a lot of fun. There's this really fun game you do on a sailing ship, or you could do it on other kinds of boats, but sailing ships would be the best. It's called deck jumping. So what you do is you're at the bow of the ship, the stern, somewhere that takes a lot more effect. You can't really do it in the middle of the ship. But so when you're going over the big waves, you do a jump when the ship goes up on the top of the crest of the wave. You do a jump.
Oh,
And
right.
what happens then, the ship goes down into the trough and
Yeah.
it will go, there's like 3 meters maybe, or 4 meters. And
Oh.
you think, oh my God, I'm this high above the deck. If I fell right now, I'd be freaking like injured or dead. But then, because you timed it right, what happens is the ship comes up and you land really gently. So
Yeah.
deck jumps are fun, but you have to be very careful because the ship is moving as it's going. So you don't want to get too close to the rail because you could end up over the side, or
Yeah.
you don't want to get too close to something on the deck, like the wheel or, I don't know,
Mm.
pins or
Yeah.
something, like, because you can end up with that up your ass. So
Yeah. Honestly, having been in a ship during a storm where the ship was actually illegally sailing, they were supposed to hit the no shipping, no sailing rule. Doing that sounds very stupid to me. Like we were returning from that island to Attica, and we had like a 9 Beaufort sea, so that's like super, super, super turbulent.
windy. Yeah.
You get the waves that can be high, like as high as 5 meters and even more. Um, and the ship was really going, that thing that you described, really, really high up, and then just
Plummeting down.
plummeting down like a roller coaster, and then you got all the sea foam, wash over you and all of that, because I did go to the bow with my dad because I wanted to feel the whole thing. But doing that, like leaping and hoping that it works, is super dangerous because you cannot tell if the wind is going to blow you to the side while you are not grounded on the
Yeah.
ship.
You need a lot of deck to do a deck jump.
Yes,
You need space for safety.
exactly.
It's
Like,
tricky.
please don't do that. If like don't be tempted to do it. Uh,
Hopefully
it's
people
not
won't be.
worth
When I was hearing these stories, I was like, note to self, never step foot on a boat.
Back then, I was very stupid. They had the mast on this sailing ship was like 33 meters high, and I jumped off that, not into the ocean, but I jumped off that and grabbed onto the main halyards, which is the ropes that to hold the thing.
Oh God.
So they're the ones that actually hold it steady in the middle of the ship, and I slid all the way down there, which burnt the crap out of my hands, burnt all the way through my
I was
sailing
going to ask.
gloves. And yeah,
Pretty
it's
wild though.
you see Errol Flynn doing that, and it's something you
Yeah.
can't really do in reality. It's just
Yeah.
you'll
Yeah.
burn yourself. I had to like slide down and stop, and then start again because it's a long
Yeah.
way.
No. I would never do that. Uh, the most adventurous I ever have been with the sea is going to the bow and watching waves just be so high that I had to look up and I still couldn't see the sky. And
That's
those would,
scary.
and those would sort of crest over us. I don't know what the expression is, and drench us basically. And that was exhilarating fun. But I was holding on for life, and I would
Oh
not
yeah.
be overboard for nothing.
Yeah, you could so easily do that and disappear below the waves so
Yeah,
easily, or below the ship, which is even worse.
yeah. And there is no rescue in such a condition. You're done.
No, that's true. Well, speaking of done, we'll have to end this Quackcast.
Yes,
This is a very
Yes.
complicated for people to
Yes,
try and
Robert.
draw. It's incredibly complicated. This is what I've gotten from this episode. Like, wow.
We'll have to simplify. We'll have to do Sky and Clouds and Ocean Part 2 simple version.
Oh yeah, I don't know how to do that. I am a glutton for punishment.
There are simple ways to do it, and we definitely need to do that. All right,
you guys
then.
talked about some fundamental stuff, like sort of less detail the farther out you go, obviously, and then the the dark to light or light to dark the farther you go out, and all that kind of stuff. That's very
it's opposite with the sky and the ocean. So it's light to dark on the ocean and dark to light on the sky, which is weird. But if you can remember that, you can always get it right.
Yeah.
Very nice.
It's weird though. I think it's the same with land too. Land and sea. It gets darker towards the horizon. I'm not sure. I can't remember.
It depends, I think. I think it depends with land.
Yeah. But if you're doing like chrome painting, so if you want to do shiny metal, that's what you do. You do the sky going dark blue to basically white on the horizon, and the land being dark and then coming to light.
Mm-hmm.
And that will give you amazing chrome reflective metal. It's so simple.
Very nice.
All right. All right, we'll wrap up. Thanks for listening to Quackcast number 727.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.